Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Lycaeus Frequency. After a short hiatus from blood rituals out in the woods, I had to take a sabbatical. That in the last episode got eaten by eaten by something, I'm sure. And tonight, an interesting guest. He comes to us from inside of a califractal sprout, one Cornelius Froggenhall.
Hi.
Hello.
It's nice to meet you.
Interesting. Now, those of you listening, wait, let's see if these diodes are in there. Right, go ahead and just give me a little something. Yep, those are working. Good. Well, for those of you who don't know, Cornelius is from the Victorian age. His spirit is trapped inside of a sprout. That was what I kind of went on the sabbatical for, is learning how to make a sentient garden. Now, that's its own fun. But, we're short of radish tonight.
Cleave.
Yes, I forgot which plants I made sentient, and I may have eaten a sentient one. But that's not important right now. Tonight, we have a few interesting articles on the Hypnagogic Archive. Our journey continues. So, I suppose we should begin, shouldn't we, Cornelius?
Yeah.
Good. So, Vessel of Commerce. This was originally posted to Off Your Chest, July 11th, 2000, and there's a picture of a woman's face drawn, like somebody drew a woman's face, but like half of it is erased and kind of marred out, the top half in particular. Let's begin. The less open-minded among you will say, I killed those women. Couldn't be further from the truth. I kept them alive. I gave them something few will ever know. Immortality. Plain and simple. They say nobody has figured out the secret to eternal youth. Well, I have. It's called a camera lens. You, reading this, fake psychiatrist, may be earning $2 an hour on this lousy anonymous forum. You might want to call the police after you read this. Have them track me down. Shouldn't be too difficult, considering you know who I am if you've been keeping up to date with the news. Know the general vicinity in which I operate, the methods I utilize, and you know what I mean too when I say I provide immortality. Think about if, just for a moment before you rush to any conclusions, those women, all of them, will live longer lives now that they've been dragged out of the shadows, out of the mundane, the placid. Last week, their faces were plastered in a deluge of ink onto every major regional publication. They became famous, well-known. I gave them something they could never have been afforded if they had gone on living as they had been. Now they live on in celluloid, in memories, because memories do a better job of painting someone than their immediate physical presence. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. I understand there are no professional photographers here. There are likely none of the police department either. At least not any who are versed in composition and the rule of thirds and the right sort of film to buy for a particular atmosphere and so on. The pictures they took of the bodies were rushed, amateurish, and did my work a disservice. Now my photos, on the other hand, the ones which landed smack dab on the front page, they looked much better. I think, even if you were averse to my activity, you must admit that. You saw them. I know you did. And while you looked at them casually, you were thinking, wow, this guy must be a horrible person, mentally scarred, devoid of compassion or empathy. But he took such great photos, glossy and sheen, just the right exposure, just the right lens. Well, I'm glad you appreciate them. I'm sure my subjects did as well, when you get right down to it. I mean, think about it. You walk along that narrow stretch every day, probably to the tech center or something, where you shuffle paperwork around, never really accomplishing anything, never really becoming a part of history. Not one that people will remember at any rate. Now, though, they're each contemporary black dahlias. I think the press has become sloppy as of late. Not enough sensationalism, too much accuracy. Not exploitative enough. My dear friends of the Fourth Estate, had it not been for my painstaking efforts to pose every cadaver just so, would have been a loss in describing the utter abhorrence of my crimes. I did most of the work for them, and I thank them for fulfilling my goal. If I can predict how the coverage will play out that well, I'm surely going to elude justice for a while yet. Just need to plan ahead. That's all there really is to it, considering how much hindsight I've got. I think I'm well covered in the foresight department. Not that I hoard technique, to the contrary. I'd be all too happy to let you all in on my acumen. The real trick is in keeping the limbs still. They always tend to move ever so slightly, just with gravity pulling down on them. In the end, I decided to use transparent fishing wire to sort of dangle their arms from the ceiling to give the appearance of a handshake or a wave. And, of course, I taped some rulers to their arms in the back to ensure proper rigidity. The trickiest part was to get their expressions down pat. I had to stuff their cheeks with cotton balls, tape their eyelids open from the inside. The human face has a ton of expressive muscles, you know. I did my best to cover each of them. Most of the shots, I would say, took at least 3 hours to set up, when all was said and done. 3 hours the detectives weren't able to find me. 3 hours with nobody smelling the rotting decay from my apartment. Just spending my time with them, making their transition into immortality as glamorous and comfortable as possible. According to what everyone wrote and after the publication of the photos, they said the women appeared undead, clinically deceased, yet with all the charm and effervescence they had possessed while they were living. Staring at the camera with those watery, aqueous membranes, grinning in the receding gums. They were lively when I found them on the route. Put up a good fight. Fame doesn't discriminate, though. The camera is, in some ways, more adept than the eye. Consider that film is merely a mechanical reproduction of the process which takes place in the photoreceptors of the eye. Couldn't we amplify this process to create scenes which are more vivid, more expressive, more emotive than those seen via normal, unaided vision? That's certainly what I've done. I've encased them in a vivid amber, engulfed them, preserved them for centuries to come. After seeing those pictures, odds are nobody will be able to forget them. I've etched them into the public consciousness. Every roll of film distorts a scene somehow. There's always the minute probability of light leaking in as well as the film grain. Really, I don't think there is a film which can accurately depict the beautiful little still life I had set up in my living room. But I think the simulacra are fine. And I commend the papers on choosing, out of the 750 or so set I submitted, the best ones. Unlike the detectives, it seems the dear Fourth Estate at least has some lingering sense of scale, of pathos, of distortion. You don't know half of it, do you? The mess they made in the back of my van, banging on the sides, wouldn't even put a dent in it. One, I believe it was the one with the frizzy brown hair and the turtleneck. She kicked the window in while I was driving her across the parking lot at the side of the route, about halfway through its length. The police still haven't found the blood from the wound I had to inflict to keep her quiet. They are messy, aren't they? I don't expect you to understand completely the effort I put in to ensure that those hapless nocturnal pedestrians would be granted the ultimate privilege, one which I or you or the manifold billions which infest this planet will never fully attain. They won the lottery. That's what you're thinking. This guy sure derives pleasure from documenting it. But you couldn't be more off the mark if you tried. I get nothing out of it. I merely documented it because I felt it had to be done. I document everything. If I hadn't done it, all you would have to go off would have been those blurry, garbage stills from the police department. You would have to admit to yourself, in all honesty, you wouldn't have wanted that. It wouldn't have been exciting. It wouldn't have been interesting. But the photos and the videos and the other trinkets which even now litter my shelves, they turn this from a mere incident, a run-of-the-mill homicide string, into a veritable sensation, a mind-grabbing spectacle. And I'm sure my journalist friends do enjoy that, even if they refuse to admit it to themselves. Their wallets are better off, thanks to my skill. You're welcome. It does feel good to get this off my chest. I'm not desperate for attention. I'm really not. I could care less what you think about me. Whether you consider me the hero or the villain in this scenario, I know you've already made up your mind about me. But that doesn't matter either. It's just sort of nice to jot this down while the memories of their frightened wails are still imprinted firmly in my mind. Unlike photographs, my long-term memory isn't the best at retaining information. Soon, I won't even fully recall the thrill of putting my arm around their throats within range of at least 5 drivers above the underpass, all of whom could have caught me in the act. Better to experience something and forget it than to never experience anything and remember it. The route itself, Prime real estate for such an endeavor. Empty, secluded, yet in the midst of such urban decay. So much foot traffic to choose from. I spent weeks scoping the area out beforehand. Every pipe, every grating, every claustrophobic tank, and every unattended boiler room. I put the bodies back at various randomly chosen places in the city's water system. Odds are they won't be recovered anytime soon. All you'll have to prove that they even existed are the pictures. I've made sure of that. So I guess this little diatribe, monologue, or what have you, is merely my way of letting you know that I'm out here, and that I know exactly what you're thinking. I don't care about what you think, how you construe these events. There are forces at play here beyond your understanding, and true beyond even mine. These women were not taken senselessly. They serve a higher purpose, a function in the scheme of things, like entries in an algebraic equation. They are hints to an all-consuming unknown. You might not know what that blank square is yet, though in time you will. You and the rest of the greasy mob of hypocrites who litter this nation of ours, poison discourse, advocate for blind ignorance. You enjoy being kept in the dark so much. Oh, you say, they shouldn't have published those horrid pictures. Well, they did. And this is only the beginning. Enjoy this level of ignorance while it lasts, because the only thing more terrifying than the unknown is the known. When everything is put to stark contrast and the sharp, unflinching comprehension, you'll be screaming 1,000 times harder than any of my victims, or any of the oblivious readers who spotted them smiling emptily on page 3. That is an inevitability. Yours, the Archivist. Well,
So, I think that guy killed those women.
well, yeah, that's a safe assumption.
Yeah. Why?
To document them?
That's weird.
I mean, it's a lot easier to paint someone when they're dead.
I guess that's fair.
Even though he did paint them, took pictures of them.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with photographic technology.
Yes. I remember black and white and dust.
Oh, they do it in color now.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do they do that?
Well, before it was just the actual light, but I think now there's something to do with the film that they use that actually allows for color to be discerned.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wish I could see.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It seems a lot of my guests aren't able to see these days. Perhaps there's something to that.
Maybe you should get guests with eyesight next time.
Maybe. I mean, I do have a couple guests that have eyesight, but they haven't come on in a while. It's been a little bit of a hiatus since I went on my sabbatical and all.
Because you were summoning me. Cleave.
Well, yes. That was the end of that sabbatical. I had to go learn how to do that. I had to speak with Baphomet. There was a whole poker night. There was another poker night. It was a whole thing.
Did you win?
I don't put stakes on it. You can't really win anything.
Oh.
But I didn't lose.
Well, that's worth something.
Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah. So what's it like being a sprout? What does that feel like?
Tingly.
Tingly?
It's a lot more tingly than I think I was when I was alive. When I was alive, everything was harsh and noticeable. But as a plant, it's just kind of faint.
Dull?
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. Let's see. Well, seeing as you're new to this whole business of being back from the dead, what was it like before you were a plant?
It was gray.
Gray. That's not terribly specific.
That's all that it was.
Feel like anything?
There's nothing to be specific about. It was just gray.
It didn't feel like anything.
No.
What kind of gray are we talking here? Are we talking like fog over... Are we talking like a fog over a harbor gray, or are we talking more of like a charcoal gray?
Heather gray.
Heather gray.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, with that thought firmly in mind, I think we ought to call upon the spirits of the board to sing us a little song. Sing us a little song while I
a little song.
look into some things. Here we are with Ouija by Hardly Poe. Welcome back. After our short interlude, we move on to another story. This one is called Your Deafening Silence. Now, I've beamed the information on this particular article into the diodes that are plugged into the dirt that you are rooted in presently, so you should be getting some information right about now.
So many words.
Lots of words. Good luck with that. Originally posted to the Tabasco travel blog on July 20th, 2001. There's a picture of what appears to be a children's book with a small tag that says $3.29 on it, as in $3.29. You can't see, you can barely see the man's face, and you can see a woman's face. It's like illustrated. It looks like they're gardening or something. Hard to say. Page. Los Gusanos. A study. For reference, I am raw in this. There are two people talking in this particular article. I will be raw, and I have decided that Cornelius will be Lana. With that firmly in mind. That's right, me and Lana have booked 10 days in Los Gusanos Inn, and we're going to share our honest thoughts on the town with you. It's a new format for us, and we're wondering what you think of it. So if any of you reading this have any thoughts to share, please email us or use the information on our contact page. We always love to hear from fellow travelers.
Just hopping in here to mention that our photography book, Tabasco's Top Picks, is now available in Decoder Press and will be out early next month. We worked really hard on it, so we hope you check it out. It features full color spreads of our trips to Newport, Scranton, Key West, and more. And anyway, with that, on to the good stuff.
Day 1. Okay, so we got here around 10 a.m. and checked in the inn, dumped our luggage there before locking up and going for a quick walk around town. Downtown Los Gusanos is located only about 3 blocks from the inn and features many of the iconic shops and businesses which have been featured in several national travel guides. California Living and American Tour, to name a few.
That's right. Los Gusanos was founded in 1887 by Joanne Xerxes, a wealthy cattleman who fed his herd on the lush green slopes surrounding the area.
That's Johann Xerxes.
I'm a small Victorian child. I don't know these things.
Clearly.
Johann Xerxes, a wealthy cattleman who fed his herd on the lush green slopes surrounding the area. And despite a decline in population beginning in the 1930s, Los Gusanos remains a favorite among the locals of the region. Picnics and outings in some of Gusanos' secluded mountain dells are the most popular activity for day vacations and weekend getaways alike. Amateur photographers have also taken a liking to the town for its unique perspectives and scenic vistas.
At around noon, we stopped to eat at the Pink Wagon. Los Gusanos' famous sidewalk hot dog stand, which had a long line and, according to the sign above the counter, the longest hot dogs in California. We split ours at a charming wooden table and observed the midday downtown bustle while eating a delicious premium sausage.
We also got a bag of potato chips. Raul told me he didn't want them, but I insisted. And for what it's worth, they were good.
We then headed to Sugarloaf Road, the business district. I bought myself a fashionable rancher's hat and some decorative cufflinks shaped like horseshoes at Ziegler's. It was a fantastic gift shop, and the sales assistant was very accommodating. I think it's always interesting to see what kind of unique wares are on sale in small, family-run shops like these.
For me, it was the necklaces that got me. Ziegler's is one of the most elaborate displays of necklaces I've ever seen. An entire wall of them, with superb styles and variation. Many of them are hewn from some of the crystal deposits of the county, giving them one-of-a-kind appearance. I chose a rhodochrosite pendant and a matching choker. Like Raul said, the cashier was incredibly polite and welcoming. When in Los Gusanos, Ziegler's is an opportunity not to be missed. All the shops are great and definitely speak to a bygone era of Californian history. A laid-back, quirky mountain atmosphere.
It's always nice to visit towns with a rich history. If you can, try to book a tour at the famed Los Gusanos Ranching Museum. The guest list is usually full for a month in advance, but me and Lana were smart and called ahead of time.
That's right, we went in the afternoon today. Our tour guide was very polite and answered everyone's question in relation to the profession of raising cattle. The museum, which occupies Johann Xerxes' former estate, is open to the public and conducts tours Monday through Friday from 1 to 6 p.m. It's definitely a one-of-a-kind experience, and we would also suggest bringing the kids along for it. Ranching sure has more intricacies than I expected.
After kicking around the shops for a while more, the evening hit. The sunset was beautiful, and we headed for Franklin's Steakhouse, which had been given the James Beard Award. I definitely feel it deserves it, although I asked for mine medium rare, and it was more like medium.
I didn't have that problem. We also got to the chef's salad and a nice bottle of...
Sauvignon.
Yes. To round out the evening. Not my favorite steakhouse, and Raul definitely knows a steak. But we did enjoy ourselves and our waiter was in good spirits. The decor of Franklin's is to die for. Taxidermied animals on every wall. In one corner there's this giant owl spreading its wings. If you can, try and get a seat near the back. It wasn't too crowded and definitely makes for a great photo op.
Well, that's about it for our first day. We'll be updating this as our vacation continues. The desk clerk at the inn was very polite to let us use the computer so we could log in and type this out. Me and Lana will probably be going straight to bed now. We've got to rise bright and early tomorrow for what we have planned.
See you all.
2.
So like we hinted at in yesterday's entry, today was going to be a little different. We decided, being in Los Gusanos, that we should take some hikes around the perimeter of the town. We got going around 8, and there was a nice breeze that spurred us on. We stopped in town beforehand for some supplies. I got a wonderful metal water bottle, which is advertised to keep water chilled for at least 6 hours, which is good in a hot climate like this.
While Lana was taking care of that, I headed to the Los Gusanos Market and Mercantile to pick up some trail bars. These are made from scratch, on location, and contain a delicious mixture of nuts, raisins, and seeds. Definitely a great snack, and you should buy some even if you don't plan on hiking.
We rejoined at around 10 and headed for a relatively small peak, which has no official name, but which we heard from a local is commonly called West Hill. It stands out like a sore thumb and has some pretty distinctive features. You can't miss it. We were told by a brochure that we found on a bulletin board that it looks down onto the valley. Raul, being the pesky camera nut he is, brought some rolls of film so as to record the view. And just like that, we pushed past the last few houses and were on our way.
It was really exhilarating to climb up West Hill. As you do, the town slowly recedes until it's just a messy clump of roads and buildings. And as you gain altitude, you start feeling really great. Lana definitely did. She posed near some trees in a creek, and I got some good angles.
And man, once you get to the top, people, it's something to be seen. Not only do you get the town behind you, but ahead of you, there's just miles and miles of that sweeping, gorgeous Sierra Nevada landscape. Raul had his tripod with him and snapped away. And if I know one thing about him, it's that he can't wait to develop the film once we get home.
You know me all too well.
Tell them about the building we saw.
Oh yeah, I had these binoculars on me that I think I bought back during our trip to Anchorage for spotting moose. I thought there was this building miles in the forest on the other side of West Hill. I wasn't really able to catch much, but it looked dilapidated. There was also this really majestic hawk soaring over the whole landscape.
Rawl said, "Here, look at this," and then he handed me the binoculars. And I saw it too. Tomorrow we're planning on hiking all the way down there, but by the time we reached the summit, we were too tired to go any further and check it out. We really need to get our hiking legs. Remember, people, always carry a water supply with you whenever you're at high elevations going for a long walk. You may not think you need it, but the human body requires water.
After our hike, we ate at Tanny's Pizza Parlor at around 8 p.m., which is located on the corner of Maple near the highway exit. One perk to Tanny's is that it's open later than any other restaurant in Los Gusanos, until 3 in the morning. So if you arrive late, be sure to stop here for a quick bite to eat. We ordered the 16-inch Supreme and sat outside on the patio.
And the patio was lovely. Getting all that fresh mountain air while eating a delicious made-from-scratch pizza really reminds me why we started this blog. To let people know about the value in the little things in life, the fleeting sensations that are all too rarely forgotten. That, for me, is what travel is all about, the broadening of one's perspective.
That was it for today. Right after we type this up, we're going to take a hot shower, review our itinerary, and then it's right to sleep. We hope you stick around for whatever comes next. Day 3. Well, today was interesting.
That might be the understatement of the year. Here's what happened.
It was about 9 p.m. It's about 9 p.m. right now, but we spent the whole day on the other side of West Hill. We got started around 11 a.m., which for us is a pretty late start. And by the time we got to the top, it was around 1 p.m. We didn't have any breakfast. That was part of it. Just those energy bars from yesterday. So I guess we didn't really plan the best, but what we found was interesting.
It was starting to rain, so Rawl took out his umbrella. Nothing serious, just a kind of light drizzle. But light was fading, especially for the afternoon, and the sun was obscured behind a storm front, which I believe was approaching from the east. The Weather Channel here at the inn had said before we left that there was going to be scattered showers, so we figured it was nothing serious. Remember, people, whenever you're planning on walking somewhere, bring a lightweight poncho or umbrella.
That's right, but that wasn't really the worst part of the experience. The other side of West Hill is way too steep. They should call it West Cliff. I was practically tripping over myself the whole way down, so eventually me and Lana had to literally sit and just scoot our way down. There are no trails, really. I wouldn't suggest doing this yourself unless you're an experienced hiker. And then there's a picture. This is your host speaking here. There's like a picture of what looks like a shady thing of dry grass. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what it is. Anyways, continuing.
From the top, we couldn't quite make out the building, but I knew where it had been, generally. So we followed my compass, and I figured that if we didn't find the building, we'd at least have a nice hike. And then on the way back, we'd completely circumvent the hill. So, our initial plan, I think, was to be out there for like 2 hours or something, and then get back to Los Gusanos and get some more shopping in.
Which obviously wasn't what happened at all. We did find the building, and we spent pretty much the rest of the day checking it out.
I remember I was the one who first saw it. It was way back, and I caught a glimmer of something, and I grabbed Rawl by the shoulder and pointed to it, and I was like, this has to be it. So we make our way forward and start checking it out.
It was really cool. Some kind of old rest stop. There was a parking lot and everything, and what Lana had seen was the glass. Some of the windows are broken now, but back when the place was operational, I guess there were these glass windows around the place in a circle. There were no signs or fences around the rest stop discouraging trespassers, so me and Lana figured it would be okay to go in and have a look inside.
And remember, if you ever do run into some place out in the middle of the forest and there are signs of forbidden entry, don't. We're experts, and Rawl has a lot of self-defense training. I'm sure he could protect me, but don't tempt it. If you're unsure about whether an area is legal to enter, you should consult your country land office or whatever governing body decides those sort of things.
For you, Lana, I'd protect anything.
Ha, you show off. Anyway, tell them about what was in there.
Mostly what you would expect. There were some pamphlets about Los Gusanos and its history. I think I pocketed one of those. Everything was pretty dusty, and it was obviously showing the effects of weather. Some of the benches that people used to sit on had been flipped over.
I was scared I was going to slip. Near the back of the place, there's this sheer cliffs are common in the area, so be careful if you plan on hiking around up there. And the window in front of it was completely broken through. Beautiful scenery, and you get a nice view of the mountain opposite to the rest stop, but watch out for that. It was around 50 feet.
So most of our day was just spent looking around this place. There apparently used to be a parking lot, but it's totally abandoned, and there are little pine trees growing up through the pavement in some places. I guess it's completely neglected. The parking lot leads out onto the highway that goes to Las Guasanas, but the short road between the parking lot and the highway was all upturned, and there was thick brush everywhere. Almost like someone was trying to hide the rest stop from people passing on the highway. It was pretty bizarre.
I think that was the point. A lot of abandoned public facilities are demolished or hidden away from public view. There is some graffiti though, so I think people have probably explored it before we did. It's a shame. The architecture is good. It's what I guess you would call modernist?
I think so. I know virtually no when it comes to architecture though.
Tomorrow we're going to the Las Guasanas Visitors Center to figure out more about the place. Maybe get some more maps of the area. Who knows what else could be hidden out in the forest. Honestly, our itinerary has kind of shifted from tourism to exploration. It's just like that around here. Lots to explore.
Well, good night everybody. It's been amazing so far, and we'll update everyone in a little bit. Day 4. Today was eventful. We spent most of the morning at the Visitors Center, and we picked up some brochures about the history of the area. They also had a lot of the knickknacks you'd expect. T-shirts that say, "I love Las Guasanas," scented votive candles, postcards, etc.
It's a small building located near the northern end of the business district. There's an ATM and some drinking fountains outside. We went in, and there was this old guy behind the counter minding the store, and behind him there was this huge enlarged photograph of town. Looked like it was from the 1960s, stretched wall to wall. The lighting in there wasn't great, so we didn't see everything, but we went up to the desk and asked the guy if he could tell us about the rest stop.
The guy seemed tired. He sulked around and coughed into his elbow a lot. He was like, "What rest stop?" Me and Lana asked for him to show us some maps, preferably up-to-date topographical ones. He had a rack of them stashed beneath the counter, so we started leafing through some of them. Most of them were new, and nowhere on any of these maps did they give any indication that there was any sort of man-made structure past West Hill.
Then I asked if they had any maps before 1998, and he told us that most of the older records are stored in City Hall, that their maps are for tourist use, and they get regular shipments. So I bought a little crystal pendant, and Raul got a postcard for his aunt, and we left. By that point, it was around noon.
City Hall is a magnificent building, built in the Victorian style. One of those buildings you could really only catch glimpses of in westerns, which are elegant and stately. Took some pictures of Lana posing on the front steps, which were white marble. We then followed the signs of the clerk's office, which was on the second level. He was a middle-aged, balding guy, stands up and shakes our hands, invites us in to have a seat. He has this really infectious grin.
Me and Raul spent almost 2 hours, I kid you not, trying to find out where the rest stop was on any of the maps the clerk had stored away. He led us down to this massive storage room with boxes and boxes of records and documents, unlocked it and flipped on the lights, and he told us that if we needed anything, we could go back up and get him. So he pulled out the box in question and examined each one, inch by inch. Same exact thing. Just blank forest where the rest stop had been. By this point, we were both extremely confused.
We went back up to the lobby, and the clerk is there, and he's looking over the rim of a styrofoam cup at us and asked us if we found what we were looking for. I told him we hadn't, and he said that if we have any further questions, we should definitely stop by again in this fake sing-songy voice. And at that point, I was getting sick of this man's bullshit. He obviously knew more than he was letting on.
Babe, you shouldn't assume that. He's just a public servant, not a historian. There probably are maps with the rest stop listed. He just doesn't know where they are is all.
He knew where they were. He was hiding them. I'm kind of sick of this town, if I'm going to be honest. All these people are so fucking fake. It's like they're reading off a script to please us, to pacify us. Just because we're tourists, they think that they have to wheel us around like we're cripples or something. It's so goddamn pandering. I mean, I've seen this in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different places, but here it's something else.
Calm down, babe. Your blood sugar, remember?
After we left City Hall, it was already pretty late in the afternoon, so we decided to call it a night, and we ate the Pink Wagon. That was our day. Tomorrow, we're going to go back to the rest stop, and to investigate some more and figure out what the hell is going on here and why nobody around here seems to remember it. I've even asked some locals on the way back to the inn if they remember a rest stop on the way into town, and they said they didn't. That's how crazy these people are. For fuck's sake, I've seen it with my own eyes. It's not more than a decade old.
Don't get obsessed. We came here to have fun. They probably don't remember it because they never leave much. Let's go to bed, okay? I'm tired.
Okay, I guess. Day 5. We had a mishap. Lana sprained her ankle. Tell me how it happened.
There's not all that much to tell. We went back over West Hill. I don't even know why I'm putting up with this stupid crusade at this point. I could be checking out things here in town. But we went over there again. I guess it's kind of interesting. It's just that whenever I get near it, I become uneasy, like someone's watching us. Gives me the creeps. Tension was probably why I slipped.
What happened was she almost fell off the edge. I kept telling her not to go near it, but 1 minute when my back was turned, she wandered over there without looking, I guess, and she went over. I screamed and ran over, and it turned out she had grabbed on the edge, just barely. Lots of shredded glass down there. Her fingers were all bloody and her ankle was hurt. Once we got back to the inn, I asked around for a first aid kit, and she has an ice pack.
Yeah, and the lady who's running the inn today provided us with some gauze. I think I'll be okay. I don't need an ambulance or anything. Even if I did, the nearest hospital is dozens of miles away. I'll probably schedule a checkup once we get back.
It's a good thing I was there to lift you up. If I hadn't, you could have actually fallen.
I doubt it. I probably could have pulled myself onto the floor. What I don't get is how the building got to be such a wreck in the first place. Buildings shouldn't be built on cliffs like that. It's dangerous to begin with, but even more so when all the windows are broken and there's shards sticking out everywhere. It was an adrenaline rush to almost drop 60 feet or so to my death, but not one I'd recommend. I'm not going back there again.
This is your host speaking. There's a picture of some graffiti here. It looks like there's a spiral, some weird writing that I don't quite understand in tag, and the words "is hot." Don't know what that means. Continuing. You promised land. You said we could go there every day, at least until our stay here is over.
That was before I almost got myself killed. It's not structurally sound, babe. You shouldn't be exploring structures like that anyway. We're writing a travel blog here, not a spelunking blog. You don't need to keep risking your life. Let's just stay here and shop around. Maybe check out the archery range.
You can do that. I need to go back. I don't know why. Because.
The pull of the unknown?
I guess you could say that. Today, while you were on the other side of the rest stop, I saw, I'm not sure what it was. It might have just been a moose or something, or a deer. I don't think they inhabit this area, but it was this dark shape that kept winding its way behind the trees, about 50 feet away.
Be careful. Can you at least carry your cell phone on you so you can call me if you run into anything?
Yeah, I will. To anyone reading this, remember that safety is our #1 priority.
Off to bed now. Good night. I'm sure we'll have something interesting to tell you all tomorrow.
Day 6.
Raul left around 10 hours ago, and I haven't heard from him for 6 hours. If anyone in the Los Gusanos area reads this entry and you think you know where he is, or you've seen him walking around, please tell me. I'm worried sick. I spent most of the day at the park sitting at a picnic table. Around 3 p.m. the cell phone rings. It's Raul, and he says there's some drug addict bothering him, and I think that's what he said. His tone of voice didn't seem concerned. At around 3:18, I get another call. He says she was really starting to creep him out. Asked me if I could come and get him. Maybe he told her his wife was coming and she'd lay off. I thought for a minute he might have been screwing with her behind my back, that they were having some kind of illicit affair up there, and maybe that's why he'd been so insistent on going back. But he did genuinely sound nervous. I went back here and prepared, got a water bottle and sunscreen and everything, and tried to pack as fast as possible. I figured if I hurried, I could get to the rest stop in maybe 45 minutes. I tried to spot the rest stop from the top of West Hill, but couldn't see it. Start calling out Raul's name, but I get no answer. So I run down the hill, my ankle's still in pretty bad shape, and make the direction of the rest stop. I can't find it. I think maybe I've become lost, that it's gotta be around here somewhere. It's just not. There are just trees and silence. After an hour straight of trying to gather my bearings, I walk back to town on the highway and go straight to the police. Tell them my husband is missing. Give them a description of his appearance. Tell them that he was at the abandoned rest stop. The officer on duty gets this horrible look in his eyes, and I knew what he was going to say before he said it. "Ma'am, there isn't any rest stop back there." And when he said it, I just about overheated. I slammed my fist against the desk and told him that if they didn't conduct a search, there'd be hell to pay. He gets 3 other cops, and they all head out to the area with flashlights and guns. I'm extremely stressed out, but I follow along. I led them along the highway to the spot where the trees opened up onto the parking lot. I remember it. It was right after the highway sign. The highway sign was exactly where it had been. Los Gusanos, 2 miles it reads, but no parking lot. Nothing even resembling an opening. By now, evening was just setting in, and they turned on their flashlights, and we called out his name for what felt like hours on end, just stumbling around in the dark. Finally, the main officer put his hand on my shoulder and told me that they were giving up, and if I wanted to go, I could file a missing persons report in the morning. I'm beyond words with the sheer incompetence displayed by this town. I am exhausted, and all I really want right now is to sleep and forget about this and hope that when morning arrives, Raul will be there and he'll say he just got lost or something. But that won't happen.
Day 7.
Went to the station this morning to file the report. Guy at the desk was different this morning. Really didn't seem to care all that much. If he's not found, I will sue them for everything they've got. You can count on it. I feel beyond empty with Raul gone. Might have to take this into my own hands. Nobody here seems to care. They just go about their day and hold hands and don't worry about my problems. I don't want to go back there. Spent the whole day avoiding the possibility. Just sitting in the park, staring at the sun like some sort of dedicated fakir? Fakir? Yeah. Thinking that if I wished hard enough, Raul would just walk down from the mountains like those old stories of people who lived in the wild for years. But he would be the same, and we could get out of here. Nothing like that happened, so tomorrow I won't avoid it. I'll go back. The answer is there somewhere. Clues, footprints, something.
Day 8.
I'm on the verge of losing my mind. Just ran a few miles straight down the highway, locked the doors, shut the windows. I only came down to the lobby because I need to type this out here. Need to tell someone what I saw. If you don't believe me, it's perfectly understandable. I haven't eaten today either. Should probably go into town and eat something. Maybe it would pacify my vitriol. I'm starving, but I can't go quite yet. I need to wash up, smooth my face. They'll see the fear on me. Probably arrest me or something. God, I hate this town. I hate it so much. It's insidious. There's something definitely evil about it. An aura that permeates every building. Every person you glance at. Something about it is just ever so slightly wrong. The rest stop is still gone. It's the same highway sign. There's no doubt about that. But where the parking lot was, there's now just a small clearing. Stand in that clearing next to a little patch of daisies, and you start to hear the sound. It's a throbbing pitch, one so high that it makes your ears want to bleed, to release their contents all over you. It's the same pitch I heard when I almost fell, when Raul's back was turned. It mesmerized me to want to jump, and it was only at the last second that instinct kicked in and I grabbed onto the ledge. Fingers are still cut up. I didn't tell Raul because of course he would think I was insane. You hear the sound. It grows, and as it does, the sense of being actively viewed by someone or something also grows. Even though it was only about 1 p.m. and the sun was out, I felt increasingly paranoid. I took a sip from my water bottle to combat the growing exhaustion. After that, the noise died down, and it was so quiet. The quiet that you never really encounter. No bird song, no wind. You never really understand what absolute silence is until you hear it, in the same way you never know what absolute darkness is unless you see it. Under these conditions, our eyes and ears construct things. Under absolute silence, our ears pick up on the pounding of our heart and the pulse of our blood rushing through our veins, so our brain picks up on that and transforms it into something. Under absolute darkness, our eyes can spot the photoreceptors in our retina and interpret them in insane ways. So maybe what I saw was a result of the absolute lack of noise, following such a rush of noise. Although, I'm not sure how a visual hallucination could be caused by auditory stimulation. The world began to look less colorful. It's like the TV here in the inn. I tried turning the saturation knob up and down, and the effect was the same. 1 second, it was a gorgeous midday forest with emerald grass and verdant flora. And the next, it was as if I was in Casablanca at the rainy Morocco airport, and Raul was Humphrey Bogart, and he was saying goodbye to me. Everything lost its color, and the silence continued. This deafening absence of something I always take for granted. This thing came out of the trees, and as it emerged, I collapsed and doubled over. At this point, my heart was beating so rapidly that I was reminded of how easy it really is to suffer a heart attack. I felt that I was witnessing something that I shouldn't be, and that what was taking place before me was something I couldn't withstand. My anatomy just couldn't handle it. This cloud, I think that's what it was, although a lot of grass and flowers were obscuring my line of sight. It came from the left like some kind of fog rolling over the mountainside. I've seen that before in certain areas where you can watch the fog envelop you. This cloud wasn't like that. It was alive. It moved with little jolts and quivers the way an inanimate cloud couldn't. It pushed its way forward and it didn't stop. By now I was completely blacking out. I felt the cloud. It was hot. It felt like the surface of an oven. And normally your nervous system kicks in and tells you to pull your hand away from the skillet, but I couldn't move, and I just had to feel this burning vapor around my arms and legs, frying me. And it was alive, and it knew what it was doing. I don't know how I lived through the pain. It seems like more than anyone should be able to withstand. After a while being inside the thing, I guess I just sort of locked up and was somewhere else. Complete silence, and I drifted away. If I was being digested by the thing, the entity, I didn't really care at that point, because anything would be preferable to spending another minute inside its scalding depths. When I came to, the sun was going down and there was sound again. Wind. I sat and just took in what was going on, caught my breath. Must have taken 20 minutes to get back to a regular heart rate. I looked down at my skin. It was covered in boils and sores, blistering in places. But the wind blew on it, and there were animal noises coming from the trees. And for a while, till I felt like I could stand. Fuck, I'm still shaky. And that's how I still am, covered in skin damage that's probably permanent. The lady here at the inn said she was going to call the hospital, but I told her it was a sunburn and asked for a shit of antiseptic lotion from the first aid kit. Right now I'm slathered in the stuff. Need to sleep right now, more than anything. Head's pounding, probably from all the epidermic trauma. If this cloud is what took Raul, I think it's safe to say that he's gone. I'll probably be joining him soon.
Day 9.
Drug addict. He said there was a drug addict. Female. Some woman following him around. She's the key to all of this. If I knew who she was, so she could give me the answers. Thought that when I woke up. It still hurts. Might hurt even more now. 2nd degree, 3rd degree. That antiseptic cream epidemiologist. Can't go anywhere anymore. Nobody would want to see me like this. I don't want to see me like this. But there's one place I can go. It's late. I feel like a drug addict. I'd have to be seen on drugs to see and go through what I've seen. I'll probably come to in a rehab clinic, and Raul will be there, and he'll be like, "Honey, it's okay. You took too many painkillers." I do need to cut back on that. Doctor prescribed them because I had appendicitis a couple years ago. Even popped a Vicodin after I sprained my ankle. Raul didn't know I brought them with me. He's been telling me to cut back. All this travel, this fucking life, it's because I'm really always in constant pain. Never content, never satisfied, always shifting and moving. I need to be honest with you. There are psychological elements at play here. Deep-seated things. Not just out there, but in here too. It's late and my only companion is the glowing desktop monitor. And without Raul, I'm not even a whole person. We're married. We took our vows. Shouldn't that count for something? The feelings we shared? Or is nothing permanent, even true love? Guess it's probably not. I was there sometime during the day. I walked. It's bright outside. Thought about just remaining in the room, curtains drawn and bed cool to the touch, but I needed air, needed sunlight. Somehow ended up right back where I shouldn't have ever gone again. Call it what you will. Call it desperation. Call it a longing for something greater. I was walking along the edge of the road. Maybe I was just walking to the hospital, which doesn't make any sense because I would have made it. I wouldn't have made it. But I was there, present and attentive, just stepping over the gray pavement on my way out. I really thought I could leave, but there's no leaving this town. It's addictive. It's a rush to your system. Does that make any kind of rational sense? I guess not. Nothing is very rational anymore. Which is why, when she entered from the left, I didn't even question it. She was in her late 20s, I think, with a suede jacket, brown hair, and just drifting lazily in the wind. And I knew she wasn't entirely there, but then again, I wasn't entirely there either. It was hard to make out her face. The road was quiet and the trees were casting shadows all over. Call me crazy, call me what you will, but Eddie and the Cruisers sprang to mind then. That psychedelic guitar riff and the slow piano. The line about how over here, nothing is real, and how she just walks out of the shadows like a dream. I'm a fucking idiot to have that long buried thought resurface. Or of a fake band that never really existed playing a mediocre song that nobody cares about, but it really did apply just in that one moment. Crossing the line. I crossed the line, and she held my hand and patted me on the back. We both sat on the shoulder of the highway and we didn't say anything for a long time. She looked into my eyes and I was crying, and she just sat there, contemplative, this blank expression on her. He's out there, she said. They're coming to get him. They're coming to get me. Questions raced through my head. Who they were, who he was, but none of it really mattered. I can't help you, I muttered under my breath. Need to go somewhere. My lungs felt like they're chapped, still do. Hard for me to talk, just a raspy whisper. This cancer or whatever it is slowly eating away at me. 10 minutes ago I went into the bathroom and my pinky nail just fell off. Tumbled into the sink without a second thought, and I tried to scream but no sound came out. Just this pathetic whisper. Everything is quieter now, isn't it? I don't know where we said goodbye exactly. She just walked away and I stood there with as few answers as I had before. I don't know how I got back here. The road was dark. The town was empty. Well, is this slowly ceasing to exist? Only thing I have left is this monitor. It's definite. Doesn't change. Whoever you are, I want Rawl back.
Day 10.
Think I know who they are. All day in bed, called nobody, talked to nobody. First time in my life I feel like I'm somewhere permanently. Dark room, shadows from the branches outside hovering on the wall. Just lying, and I'm slowly dissolving into nothing. Should have gotten it treated. Should have gotten a lot of things treated. Too late for that now. Time passes, and if you don't fix your problems, they only grow worse. Crawled out to finish this, leaving a trail of blood behind like a snail. Hear things outside. Voices. Talking. I think it's them. I've only caught glimpses. Yellow eyes and tall. Out the window they're pounding to get in. They're going around the door and they'll get in because the inn is never locked. Because nothing in this place is hidden, really. You'll find it if you look for it. Don't come here.
Well, didn't think you a thespian, but what do you know?
Victorian era was good for theater.
Yeah, no, I guess it was. My, what a story. So much for Rawl.
So much for Lana, too.
Well, yes. At least Lana had the good sense to tell us before she left.
Yeah.
If any of you listeners out there from the Los Gusanos area, please send in your stories. And even if you're not, I'd just like to hear about what's going on. Those messages should be sent to lycaeusfrequency at gmail.com. That is Lycaeus frequency at gmail.com. We live on your viewer submissions, and unfortunately we don't have one tonight. But that was quite an interesting story. A familiar location further in the future, it seems. I've heard of this rest stop once before in the Hypnagogic Archive. It's a strange place filled with stranger things yet. and it seems it's claimed 2 more victims. How quaint, wouldn't you say?
How many victims do you think it's claimed in all?
3 or 4.
3 or 4?
About 3 or 4 that are noted, but of course there could be many more not on the books.
Well, can't go to rest stops as a plant, so good for me, I guess.
Yeah, you're rooted. You have nowhere to be because you're already there. Well, for you folks listening out there in the world, whatever you are, be you a red-eyed creature staring out the window at me, or somebody sitting in a home in Hyuchi, or someone tuning in somehow from the bottom of a river, well, we thank you for your patronage and your listening. And, well, I just suppose that's the end of our show tonight. Good night, lock your doors, be certain to be safe, and, yeah, good evening, sweet dreams.